Yo, what is going on, guys? I'm going to be going over the UFC fight that Dana White announced on Instagram Live. Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer. We are turning off our body cam for this fight. We are beating Israel. Nah, I'm kidding, guys. I'm going to go in a deep dive on this one because, I think it's a really interesting matchup, just being that, Pyfer, a guy underrated, I feel like, lost to Hermanson, but, you know, I really do think he has improved. The only thing I'm questionable about is output, and obviously Izzy just on a 3-fight skid. So it's going to be interesting looking at it. I think the style in this fight can really play, a big part on it. And, you know, Pyfer can definitely find a lot of success, and I'll get into that. They also had Alexa Grasso versus Macy Barber too, but I think Grasso's just going to easily take that one. I think she's just the much technically better fighter, taking her career more seriously. I don't know what's going on with Macy Barber. We'll talk about that maybe, but I'm really just going to talk about this fight almost only. But, you know, it's just interesting being that I do think Pyfer is very underrated, especially just, the way he manages distance, the way he, fights in his stance and is very patient and selects the right shots. It can be very dangerous. I was watching him and Gaslam, and that first round he looked amazing, not throwing a lot of strikes, but dropped him 3 times or 2 times, landed a head kick, and looked really good. It's very interesting to watch Joe Pyfer. He almost looks like Conor McGregor in his stance a little bit. Obviously not at that level of counters and speed, but the way that he sits in his stance and, sometimes stands his base and just throws the right hand, like, he really is impressive for this weight class. You don't see, a type of striker like him generally, and the power that he has is super impressive. I don't know how Gaslam was able to eat those strikes, but hey, man, Gaslam be eating everything. That's all I got to say. That's how he ate the strikes. I answered my own question. But Izzy just has to keep the volume on him, move very well. He can't be content with just staying and, not moving his feet. He has to move his feet very well in this fight, find some good kicks up the middle, good leg kicks. That's his way to win this. Joe Pyfer has insane power. We saw against, Imavov and Izzy. Imavov saw the switch stance that Izzy had, and he instantly went after him when he squared his stance. When you square your stance in boxing, you're cooked. You can't do that. And Pyfer's boxing is really good. Underrated kicks. He doesn't use them as much, but they're underrated. And another thing that's underrated about his game is his wrestling. He, has 2 or 3 submission wins in the UFC. Submitted Abus Magomedov. He did get controlled in the first round, but second round, the one thing I do like about Pyfer is, being that he is a more talented striker than he is a wrestler, he still is not afraid to go out there and, seek a submission when he is on the ground. He's not going to shoot multiple takedowns throughout a fight. And, his takedowns aren't necessarily the best. And I think, Izzy won't have a problem defending them. But I could see a world where, Joe Pyfer throws a big overhand right or just a big, punch and finds Izzy on the end of it with a takedown. Something like that where he mixes it together. I could see that happening, and, him finding Izzy on the ground. I do not think he will submit him, but maybe Joe's been working on his game and he finds out that, he saw DDP submit him and he could find the same victory. A lot of stuff can happen in this fight. It's not crazy to say. If you really look at the styles in this, Pyfer gets out of the way of strikes very well. When he's moving off the center line and, he moves his head off the center line while he's exiting at the same time, which, you do not really see in heavier weight classes as much. And, I think he has great slips. Counters are really great. When I was comparing him to Conor, obviously it's a different type of, counter striking, and it's not the same level, of course, but you could see that he definitely has great counter striking. Same does Izzy. That's the one thing I will say. But I have seen when Izzy does get pressured, sometimes he shells against the cage when he does not want to circle out and move, or he seems that he's getting cut off. I could see a world where, there was a few fights earlier in Joe Pyfer's UFC stint where, he found a good right hand. I forgot exactly which fight it was, but he found a good right hand up against the cage when his opponent was showing up. And that's really what Izzy cannot do in this fight. He cannot be content. Pyfer is gonna, hit you through the guard and he's gonna knock you out. That's the one thing. So he has really tight boxing, really powerful boxing. Izzy's versed great boxers, but the thing that's different about Pyfer is he's not just a volume guy. He's gonna, his shots are gonna really be significant. And the only thing I see for Pyfer in this is just the activity on the strikes. Over 5 rounds, it's gonna be rough to for him to really, put it on Izzy. And I think Izzy can maybe come out stronger in 3, 4, and 5 if it gets to that. But we'll see. We saw in, when he versed Strickland, that when he got rocked in the first round, he was a little bit gun shy, and that really lost him the fight. And it's different when you get in there with a guy, and Pyfer's not, Pyfer's the bigger guy here, so it's gonna be really interesting to see. Pyfer's kicks, Gaslam ate that head kick, and Pyfer is just strong everywhere, strong takedowns even. I'm really interested on this one. I think Pyfer could take this. I think Pyfer could upset him and really just, he'll turn his body cam off, bro. He really will. Like he really messed you up like that. I think I'm going to pick Pyfer by upset. I do not know the odds on this yet. It did just drop not a few hours ago. I'm probably going to release this the day after, but yeah, man, like Pyfer's underrated. Just watch him. I really like his technicality. Doesn't have any like real true holes in his game other than the volume. And yeah, man, like post hair transplant, but Joe Pyfer is a different animal, bro. Got the body cam turned off. Freaking hate Mexicans. I don't know why. Yes, I don't know why Pyfer hates Mexicans, bro. I don't know if y'all have seen this the headlines of him and bro. Every time a freaking somebody asks him about a Mexican fighter, he literally has straight up beef with them. But I think he got food poisoning. That's why. But hey, man, regardless of that, yeah, Pyfer takes it, bro. He's Izzy's lucky he's not part Mexican, bro. We know Izzy is literally part freaking everything in this existence, bro. He's part Chinese, he's part New Zealand. So, hey, man, I think I'm going to pick Pyfer, bro. I'm going to pick Pyfer. I said I would talk about this other fight, but dude, all I seen about this is they saying that Grasso's going to win by fee picks, bro. Like, I don't even want to go over this fight. And we're not even going to talk about Macy Barber, bro. Like, you're cooked, bro. You're cooked. She's, hey, man, she might have a link in her Instagram soon. I just don't even want to talk about this fight, honestly. Yeah, that's going to be it, guys. It was really fun going over this one. I think this is going to be an entertaining lead up to the fight. Maybe we see Izzy, throw a fit. I wanted to bring this up earlier when he throws a fit at DDP, crying on the mic. Maybe we see that if Pyfer, riles him up a little bit. But hey, man, this was fun to go over. I really hope you guys enjoyed this little breakdown I have. Maybe I'm gonna go, a little bit more in depth probably when the, full card gets built. But it was a fun one, guys. I will see you guys next time. Peace.